Hello everyone and welcome back to war number 5 of season 42. The bans are quite interesting in this war against Pycb. As you can see, they banned 3 mutants in Apocalypse, Omega Red, and House of X. That's a pretty interesting strategy that we haven't seen yet, because for the most part, the mutant defense tactic champions have very good counters in the tech class, but there are a number of skill champions who gain prowess when they purify, and if you crit against them, that, you know, the Apocalypse and House of X type counters, as well as Omega Red, can really make it more difficult to plan if they are not available. But what that does mean is we do have access to one of the best science champions in the game during the Torch Blacklist season, and that, of course, is Miguel, Spider-Man 2099. So he's going to be taking on some very difficult mystics that with the anti-venom synergy are just going to be completely powerless basically. But we are going to get to see iDoom do a couple tactic fights as well. He is one of the best tactic attackers, and because he was available, he's even going to be able to take a Crossbones, who you wouldn't necessarily think he's a good counter for, but we did discover some things as we were dueling to make sure that it was a very good counter. So I was a little busy this evening and I needed to get these fights in so that I could free up my teammates. So that's why I'm not necessarily stressed, but I just really wanted to make sure I read the nodes, because I did not duel as much as I normally would. I was kind of in between things and just needed to take these 3 fights. So we're on path 2, and because we are essentially buff immune with Spider-Man 2099, the placebo buffs are just never going to come on us. Which just means this fight is essentially a vanilla Mordo. And because we have anti-venom, we start with a wither, which means a few things. It means our combat power rate is higher. It means that we will place ruptures on block. And it means if he ever gets one of his power gains, it's going to start at negative 125% potency, and it's just going to go back down. Now, when he gets really passive, we can hit his block, and we don't have to worry as much about the buff pausing with our decks, because the placebo buffs are naturally coming on us, and anytime they fail to trigger, we get our little buff pauser thing. So there's even less dancing around for Spider-Man 2099 on path 2 because of the placebo buffs. Now this next node is Crossbones, and obviously Spider-Man 2099 would not be a good counter here, but this is essentially like a path split type thing where there's like no node here, because he's not going to be nullifying anything on us, so the placebo buffs do nothing. And what we're going to do is just use the fact that we have this armor up the entire time, which means as we hit him, we get these tiny power burns, and we're able to remove the prowess. You know, the way you die in this fight is if he has like 10 Furies and multiple prowess and he throws a special 2, right? So we are not going to do anything fancy. iDoom has some really cool rotations with the special 3, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to connect our heavy as soon as we place our shock. You'll see right here, because there's a little half-second delay before he is able to purify those debuffs, which means we're able to do sort of like the easy iDoom rotation, which is just we connect a heavy into the shock, do the Doom slap, straight into a special 2, hope for some critical power burns. That's going to be plenty of damage to get him down. And the only damage that we're going to take is a little bit of block damage, because we do have a massive armor that is helping with some of the block proficiency, but he does have a lot of furies, so that's why we did lose a little bit of health. But you can see there we get a couple critical power burns and a couple power burns, and that's enough to take him down. So unlike Kingpin, you are able to get the heavy off before the shock disappears, which is something that makes Crossbones a little bit easier to fight with like either of the Dooms, honestly. So anyway, that was Crossbones, no issue there. We were a little worried that would be a long fight, but it really wasn't a long fight at all. And then finally we have this Mangog here. Now they added a node called Resistance is Futile, which means if you are immune to something, they gain little power gains. And the funny thing is that we are definitely immune to buffs, but it doesn't matter that he's power gaining because we already have the wither up. As we're taking lots of hits to the face, I'm really glad I had that indestructible boost. I'm not really sure why I was taking hits there, just little mistakes. But anyway, they basically added this node resistance is futile so that if you went into this drip feed placebo node with a buff immune, they would be somewhat punished with power gain. But like I said, the irony is that we have our wither for the entire fight, which means he's just never going to be gaining power, and then every time that he gets back to 0 bars of power, he's just going to be instant rupturing himself. It's clearly the best counter there. Obviously, Reed Richards works pretty well too, but if you have the ability to send Spider-Man 99 with a anti-venom synergy, it's just kind of a joke fight there. So we were able to do that, and again, that's why you can't ban every single champion. So we did struggle a little bit with some champions that we needed Apocalypse for, but we were not struggling with these Mystics, which is really nice. Now, next up we have Sasquatch on continuation of Path 2 here. On this node, it's kind of the same thing as the last node where, you know, they place Mystics here because of like various ways of you gaining buffs and the Mystics punishing them. When I knock him down, it's supposed to put a Fury on me, but because I'm buff immune, knocking him down is only going to suffice to pause my debuffs on Sasquatch. And because I have access to exhaustion, he's never going to be gaining his wrath charges. We just throw a heavy, and whenever we throw a heavy, it not only puts an exhaustion on him, it also will pause all of our debuffs. We get that little spider symbol on us simply because on the knockdown it tries to put a Fury on us. So even though this is a beefy Sasquatch, we're going to just tear right through him because there's no dexing needed, right? We're just getting these buffs put on us, and we have the exhaustion, so we're turning off all of his annoying abilities. The fact that he's had 0 of the rage stacks means that we're able to do full damage. None of his damage protection is on. We're ticking away with the red numbers. We're just sort of baiting specials, and one more special 2 should pretty much get him down. And because of despair, he's not really healing either, so just no risk there when Spidey 99 is available. And then finally, before we get to the mini boss island, we have a Sauron, who again, you know, Nimrod obviously would take care of him here. Well, actually, no, I forgot. The reason we're using iDoom is because of the EMP modification. I actually think even if this wasn't the armor burn season, that iDoom would be a really good counter here because he's just tanky and can handle mutants really well. This is, of course, a 7-star. We saw a 7-star Mangog earlier, but the fact that we have armor burn just means that this is a joke fight because he will never gain prowess, right? He will never get that unblockable. We won't accidentally take a special 1. So here I'm just blocking the special 1. I figured I'm very comfortable with the dex, but there isn't really a reason to need to risk dexing when he's not unblockable. So you'll see, like, as the fight goes on, I get a little bit more comfortable dexing it. But yeah, the strategy here is to do the same thing. We're not going to go for a special 3 rotation. We're going to do our aura into the special 2. Now, it would be nice if I could get him over 2 bars of power because then we do more damage. But also, there's no rush here. There's no reason to like do anything risky, so I am just kind of throwing the special 2 as I get it. Every time we knock him down, we put Cowardice on him, which just sort of reduces the damage of his special attacks even more. Now we're kind of getting these dexes together. We're going to do one more special 2, and he goes down. So normally, the full shock immunity that we have with iDoom would be enough there anyway, but the fact that we were keeping his prowess at 0 just means he's an even better counter, perfect counter right there. And then we do have one more fight. I'm checking my invuln, and I'm just seeing it disappear. I was just too slow, unfortunately. So now I'm deciding to take a little break, basically. I was like, if I still had the invuln going, I would have jumped right into this fight. But I definitely want an invuln. You can see here, this is a rank 5 Mojo. He's got 383k health, which is a lot for a mini boss. Like in the old days, that used to be how much health like a Mojo boss would have if he was a rank 3 boss. So this is a big Mojo, and we obviously don't have the True Strike countering ability that Spidey 99 used to always have against those Mojo bosses. So I am definitely going to throw on another invuln. It feels a little wasteful, because it's such a safe option. But, you know, this node has the ability to stun you by accident. Like, I could accidentally dash back and hit parry, and then it would reflect on me. And, like, if he did a combo into a special against Spidey 99, I would not survive that. So that's why we are opting for the invuln boost, even though this is a very simple fight on paper. And the name of the game is don't parry, right? Because he has stunning reflection. We do have access to ruptures, which are good for the polka dot power. And because the wither is up, it means we don't really have to worry about prompts. Obviously, we don't want to get it too out of hand and have him get a fury or anything like that. But the fact that, you know, he's not going to get that random power gain that he gets from fulfilling prompts means that, like, we can be a little bit more aggressive than usual. Now, the other thing, I mentioned it earlier, the nice thing about the anti-venom synergy is that you start with the wither, which is great for abilities, but it also at Sig 200, it would normally increase your combat power rate. In a fight like this, that doesn't matter though, because we don't have any combat power rate. The only way that we're getting power is off of the polka dot power. So you just have to be a little bit aware of that. Like, you might be expecting to get to your special 2 earlier than you actually do, because when landing hits, you are not actually getting any power from those. But you can see we had plenty of specials ready to go, and there was nothing at all dangerous about that fight. I fought Mojo a million times with Spidey 99, and even though he had a lot of health there, we were properly boosted, and it felt very, very safe. So that's the end of my war. It was kind of fun to stretch out a little bit and have 6 fights this war. We did lose to Pycb. We had a little bit of an implosion in our battle group due to some coordination issues. Nobody's fault. I just think these weekend wars can be really difficult. So blame does not go on any individual for sure. We are a team. We live and die together day in and day out as an alliance war, pushing alliance, and you can't win them all. Now, I do kind of hope that we start getting some easier matchups, because even though we've been losing a little bit, we seem to keep going up against Masters Alliances, even though we are in Platinum 1. So, I mean, not that I want to beat up on lesser alliances, but the way we're playing and the way that we are seated in Platinum 1, it would be nice to get some alliances that are also in Platinum 1, so that maybe we can start clawing our way back up and getting a little bit more confidence as an alliance as we continue this season. So anyway, that's going to do it for this war. Thanks for checking it out. I hope you enjoyed the Miguel gameplay as well as iDoom, one of my new favorite tech champions. And that's going to do it for today. Thanks for checking it out, and I'll catch you in the next one.